Just 1 second. I think, right, okay, Ross. The latecomers will just have to come online when they can. So I'm just going to introduce you to everybody.
How do I share?
Typical. As I just started doing that, people go ping, ping. So Rory Underwood, England caps, 85, 49 tries. Do you still hold a record for the tries?
For England, yeah.
Okay. 6 caps for Lions. And he's just recently turned 56, correct?
No, I'm 57 in June.
Ah, right. Happy birthday in June. Can I,
how
before
do I
we
share the screen, Del? Del, how do I unshare the screen?
You want to share the screen?
How do I unshare?
Unshare, okay.
I think he has to do that.
This will stop other screen sharing.
Yeah, stop.
Got it, fine. It's just appeared on a different flipping screen. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Lovely.
Right, I'll be back up on screen then.
So can I just clarify one thing, Rory? Some of the parents will know this. In fact, you're not the most famous person in your family. How is your mother?
She's very well. She's very well.
Good.
Yeah, as most people know, she's the most famous Underwood of the three of us. So
yeah.
But you've got to explain why they're more famous. So
I'll let you do that then, as they're your family members.
Well, basically, guys, if you go onto YouTube and do a search for Underwood Brothers England Scotland 1993, after the game, I think I put Tony in for a try. I scored a try, and at the end of that, the cameras panned into the West Stand of Twickenham, and basically took a picture. Well, just filmed my mother doing a one-person Mexican wave, basically in the stand, and she became so famous for that, and she actually got put into a Pizza Hut advert, which is obviously I don't get reminded about many times at all.
There are other pizzas available, by the way. Can you tell the boys and parents who obviously know you as a rugby player and a pilot, just give them a bit of a colour about your family background and how you came to be in England, so they get a bit of a picture of your family?
Yeah, the roots for my family are from the northeast of England and from Malaysia. So my dad joined the Merchant Navy, sailed around the world for about 5 years as an engineering officer, and then eventually, this would be late 50s, early 60s, and then ended that and went to look for a job. And the world was opening up, and so he went and got a job in Malaysia, and that's where he met my mum. It's a standard Eurasian expat type story. I came along in '63, born in Middlesbrough, up in the northeast. But my mum had me here, and my dad had to go back, and so she spent 3 weeks here with the mother and the in-laws, which she never met, and then before she then flew back. So I've got used to get in the old days in the book BOAC, used to get a log, used to sort of have the pilot sign the trip and say what trip you did. And it actually got a thing that 6,000 miles or whatever, and I was like 3 weeks old. So my first entry in my logbook at the age of 3 weeks old. Grew all my life in Malaysia until I went to boarding school at the age of 8. So I went to Barnes Castle School up in the north of England from the age of 8. And I used to go and stay at my grandparents in Middlesbrough for half-term exeats and things. But you go back to Malaysia 3 times a year, so it's fantastic.
So I assume your exposure to rugby came when you went to Barnard Castle School?
Correct, yeah. I was playing football in Malaysia, as you do. You're just football mad. And then went to the main school at 11 and was introduced to an odd-shaped ball, basically.
And did you know what to do with it?
No. I mean, I can remember the very first. So September in the main school, Wednesday afternoon sport, it was literally into the classroom, and the guy was drawing a rugby pitch and explaining the rules and that sort of stuff. And literally had a thing, sort of a form to ask your experience of what you've done and various things, and asked about, what position you like to play. And of all the positions you described, there's only one position that was the same in football as it is in rugby. So that's why I became a winger. Apart from the fact that I was, obviously quite quick at the time, so.
And also, some people may not know this, there was another famous rugby player there at the same time as you.
Yeah, so at the age of 11, I was in York House at Barnard Castle School in the same year as Rob Andrew. So Rob and I have known each other since we've been 11 at the same school in the same house. So we used to play in the same rugby team and cricket team the whole way through our house in Barney.
Before I get into the thick of our conversation, I want to ask. We have a very special mum, who, when
They're
I
all
asked,
special, Dale. They're all special.
well, they are indeed. But when I asked her if there was anybody in particular that she wanted to have as our second guest, I was expecting maybe Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise. She went, no, I want Rory Underwood. So I'm going to pass over. I'm going to unmute Gina Stone.
Hello, Gina.
Gina, can you hear me? Say yes, because
You need to unmute her.
I have. Are you there, Gina?
She's still got a red.
She? Hang on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go. There she is.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi there. I have to say, probably me and my husband were one of your biggest fans, and Tony, obviously. So I can't leave him out as well. And going back to the 90s, I know it's showing our age a little bit, when we used to watch you a lot playing England. And I do remember that Scotland game very well. And that was probably one of the questions I wanted to ask you. And it is more to do with your mum.
Yeah.
When you scored that try, and obviously she was out on the big screen and did that Mexican dance and became famous for it, did it embarrass you? Because because I get told off not to scream when I see my son running on the pitch, and he tells me not to even open my mouth. And I just wanted to see how you reacted and your brother, because that obviously made her incredibly famous.
Yeah, no,
and we thought it was absolutely amazing.
I didn't realise she was doing it. So I mean, obviously, I'm involved in the game. So I just scored. I put Tony in for a try, and we were celebrating as an England team anyway. And I wasn't aware of it till obviously when people mentioned about it when they were watching live, because in those days it was all watching it live. But to be honest with you, if you want a mum to be embarrassing, you want her to be embarrassing in front of a 70,000 person crowd.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't notice it. Whereas when you've got, 50 people, 100 people on the side of the pitch and a mum goes mad, you will see it. So no, I wasn't embarrassed by my mum. It's one of the nice things. I seriously, I go anywhere in the world, and anybody who's involved in rugby will know about it and will ask me about my mother all the time because of that iconic image from the 1993 game.
It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And I loved the Pizza Hut advert. She was absolutely excellent. How many takes did that happen with Jonah Lomu?
Well, the thing is, we didn't do it together, so.
Okay, oh really?
No. What they did was they built a set which was about a third bigger than it is in real life, so that we looked small against the set. And then they filmed it with him being the set a third smaller. So when they jammed it together, so he filmed it in New Zealand. So we never saw him. But yeah, that's that. My mum, Tony, and my mum, we went down to Pinewood Studios and filmed it down there. We had a day down filming. It's fascinating.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much, and thoroughly enjoyed you over the years watching.
No, absolute pleasure.
Brilliant winger, you and your brother. I know you alternated left to right often, and with how many tries you did, but absolutely excellent. You gave us many afternoons of enjoyment, me and my husband, back in the 90s. So,
Gina, I understand you're a brilliant baker. Is that right?
I am.
I look forward to my sponge cake. I like cream and jam in the middle, please.
Okay.
It's called the Victoria.
We'll do that when I can get some flour.
All right. Okay, I'm going to mute you if you don't mind. And the next one, one of my own players, who is an aspiring RAF man, and I'm going to get him online to ask him, because he's been desperate to ask you a couple of questions. His name is Alex. Alex, let me find him. Ah, there he is. Alex, I'm going to unmute you. Alex, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, the floor is yours, as they say in TV world. Off you go.
First of all, thank you for letting me have a word with you. It means
pleasure.
So first off, I'd like to ask, so as obviously it's a lot of people apply to become a RAF fighter pilot, as it's quite a big role in the RAF.
Yeah.
What sort of made you stand out from all the other applicants that applied for that role?
So
He was playing for England.
I
Sorry,
wasn't at the time.
I had to say that.
So, I mean, the things have changed. When I joined, I literally, the qualifications required to become an officer was the minimum was 5 O levels, so equivalent of GCSEs. So you needed 5 O levels. You didn't need to have an A level. What you had to have is at least a maths, English, and a science. That's all you needed. But of course, you have to go through a 5-day selection process. And the selection process obviously is medical, so you've got to get yourself through the medical. So you've got no sight problems, no underlying health issues, for obvious reasons when you're potentially pulling yourself lots of G and it's quite physical. Then you have to go through a lot of aptitude testing. So it's not just a simple question of whether you can add 2 + 2, but it's whether you can add 2 + 2 when you're under pressure. So there's a lot of applied thinking and aptitude testing and speed of the way you can assimilate information and regurgitate it or make calculations. But also then they've got a lot of testing around your hand-eye coordination. Now, for you lot, it's quite easy because you just play computer games, and a lot of it's computer game based now. When I was doing it, it was quite a manual scenario, obviously, as you can imagine, back in the steam age. And then that's the sort of, you could argue that the pilot side of things. The other side of it is you as an officer. So you have to be an officer to be a pilot in the Air Force. You can be a sergeant or whatever in the Army Air Corps to be a helicopter pilot. But in the Navy and in the Army, to be a pilot, you need to be an officer. So what are the qualities they're looking for an officer? Is obviously leadership qualities and your ability. I always describe it as what I'm looking for is A, do you have the officer qualities and leadership qualities? But have you got the qualities to, you walk into a mess anywhere in the world and you have just arrived there and you walk into the officer's mess and you don't know anybody, but you can start up a conversation and you can talk to anybody that's around there. You can talk about whatever you need to. So that whole ability, so it's 5 days of testing you go through to try and do that. Never mind the fact you've got to go 4 years of training to get to become a pilot. So there's a lot of stuff to go through. And obviously simple things like get to know stuff about the Air Force, get to know stuff about what the aircraft are, have a wide sense of understanding about what's going on with the world around politics, the world, geography, etc. You don't have to be an expert, but you've got to be able to, hold a conversation with somebody about life in general. So there's a wide things. And of course, at the end of the day, what you can't cheat is the fact that have you got the hand-eye coordination to be able to fly? So, if you do know your left from your right or your port from your starboard and up and down, then that's halfway there.
Also, adding on to that, in terms of sort of qualifications, personally, I'd quite like to be I'm not really too sure, an F-35 or a sort of in the quick reaction alert Typhoon sort of squadron up at sort of Coningsby or something.
Yeah.
So next year, I'm planning on doing my private pilot's license in America. And I just wanted to ask, do you think that would make sort of put me up the list when it comes to sort of applying?
Yes.
And
definitely.
So, okay.
Definitely what they're trying to look for is if you get somebody who just bums around, doesn't do anything, just applies and just thinks, oh, I think I'm going to go and being the Air Force pilot, they're not going to be that interested in you. But if you go and show some initiative, go and show some up and go and get them to learn how to fly, and you can prove you get your PPL, that's going to be a bonus, definitely, without a doubt. Have you actually looked to see whether you can get yourself a flying scholarship? I
haven't, although I am in the RAF Air Cadets, and I've gone flying once in cadets and one out of cadets. So it's quite good, yeah. Yeah,
so I applied to do the flying scholarship when I got in. And so the Air Force paid for my first 30 hours of flying at Cambridge Airport. And then my dad paid for the next 5 hours to get my PPL. So I did back in 79 or 80. So I was like 17 years old when I got it.
Oh, okay.
So, and the Air Force paid for most of it. So through your ATC, ask them about, how do you apply for a flying scholarship? Your dad will say,
I think
apply, save me some money.
I think I might have, but I think they denied it because you have to be 16 to apply for a scholarship.
Right.
But I'll double check with that.
Okay.
Also,
you said two questions, Alex.
Sorry. This is my last question. How did you, as both are very, very sort of demanding, how did you balance being a England player and a fighter pilot, sort of in your everyday life, sort of?
Yeah, I mean, the best way of describing it is my job. It was being a part in the Royal Air Force. So 8 o'clock, I was met brief every morning. 8 o'clock was met brief, but we didn't finish till 5. So my day job was being a pilot, and my hobby was playing rugby. I mean, we train Tuesday and Thursday nights like you do, and I played on a Saturday. So it's no different. That's the way it was in those days. So if you try and compare it to what it's like now to the professional game, it's different, because the guys are obviously full time. They train during the week, and they don't have a hobby like I did, except playing Xbox or whatever. But it's totally different. There's no way you can do both now. If you look at Kardooni, who's the other one? Alan McInerney, I think it is. There's a few of them that are ex-services, but they're not in the service full time. They're just a full-time rugby player. Mm. So it's something that you could do in my day, but it's not going to happen anymore.
So is that it, Alex?
Thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure. Good luck. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
If you need somebody to write a reference, don't come to me or Rory. Just in case people haven't seen, I'll put something on the chat. If you've got a question, please put it on the chat so I can ask Rory. Otherwise, this becomes a free-for-all. Rory,
Del,
if you can think back to when you were this age, you were sitting across yourself. What advice would you be giving yourself?
Which
in terms of now we're in a list lockdown. I want you to
talking
think about
life in general, or are we talking rugby?
I'm talking about rugby. So obviously the boys we're trying to keep them engaged in their rugby, keep their fitness up and everything else. And what advice would you give them about this current situation that everybody's in?
Practice. If I look back at my time, I was an amateur and I was doing it for the love of the game. But if I look back now, I could spin pass off my right hand. I couldn't spin a pass on my left hand. You'll be some scrum halves people can do it, but I could never do it. So I wish I'd spent more time in my early years learning how to pass my left hand. I was an okay kicker. I wasn't the world's greatest. You can always practice something as a winger. So for me, you can never practice enough. And as long as you believe that you're always learning, then there's always time for practice.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So it's just, which is something that we talk quite a lot to the boys in terms of, there's no secret.
You didn't pay me to say that, by the way.
No, the secret of success is just hard work. So how did you end up joining the RAF? Was that something that you always wanted to do? Like Alex has had this ambition as a young man. Did you suddenly think, actually, this is what I fancy doing? Or were you always wanting to be a pilot?
I always wanted to be a pilot. I used to travel back to Malaysia 3 times a year to travel back from Heathrow. When I first went back, the first time I remember going back from London back home, it was in a DC-10, and we literally did London to Frankfurt to Rome to Athens to Dubai to Karachi to Delhi to Bangkok to KL. It was horrendous. 2.5 hour, 3 hour trips the whole time, and stopping at these places to get refueled. But the thing was, all of us here, we sit in this aluminium tube, and you can see the window out the side, and you just see a terminal whizzing past. That's all you can see. And I always wanted to see what it looked like at the front. What does it look like when you get airborne and coming into land? When you're coming into land, you see the runway in the distance. What was it like? So that was my fascination with flying in the early days. And once I got into the CCF at school, the draw of the Air Force and the lure of flying in the Royal Air Force was really strong. So I just followed that path and I joined the Royal Air Force. I joined in 1983 and wanted to be a pilot. So from the early teens, I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay. I've got a few questions here to ask from the boys.
Yeah.
Some of them don't make any sense, and the ones that don't make sense are from the parents. I've got a question. I think, Andy, I'm going to embarrass you. Andy, a namesake of yours. His name is Andy Underwood. He says, as a kid, I grew up on holiday in the Highlands of Scotland. Many a time I would watch a tornado or jaguar screaming through. My question. And that's it. Unless he's all right. Oh, here we go.
What's it like flying low level?
Yeah, that's it. Somebody jumped in before him. Yes. What's it like flying low level?
So just to give you an idea, low level. So most of you saw the picture that was up before. That's a Hawk aircraft. It's like the Red Arrows. I used to fly that in 100 Squadron, and it was a training aircraft. So low level classified as anything below 2,000 feet. But when we're flying operationally at low level, it's 250 feet off the ground. So for all you kids, that's 80 meters. The best way of describing it is if you take a rugby pitch and you turn it on end, I would fly underneath the top posts, just to give you an idea how low it is. And the speed we're flying around is about 420 knots. It's about 450 miles an hour. It's about the speed your dad drives on the car on the motorway. 7 miles a minute is the way of thinking about that. So that's my low level office, 420 knots, 250 feet. And you're flying down in the weeds. The nickname for us mud movers, I used to think of myself as a low level pilot, is mud movers, and you're flying in the weeds because you're flying so low. Now that's peacetime, because we don't want to hack too many of the people in the valleys of Scotland, or the animals and sheep and horses and things. But there are certain parts of Wales and Scotland where it's tactical low flying areas where you can actually fly down to 100 feet. So it's less than 30 meters. It's about the try line to the 25 meter line. It's incredible how low it is. And then when you go to war, so I remember the war in 91, the tornadoes that are flying low level through there on the way to the target, the limit was, well, we call it was a sphincter factor. So you basically flew as low. You could fly as low as you wanted to, as long as you didn't hit the ground, basically. I used to say that, used to see at the back of the aircraft on the ground, just the rooster's tail coming out from the ground as the jet wash flew down the desert and all the sand being picked up at the back because it was so low.
Coming back to a bit of rugby questions here. So Max Dingle wants to know if you have one try that stands out more than any other for you.
Yeah, no, I get asked this question a lot because, I ask this question a lot, and I find it hard to answer for no other reason than, as you've alluded to, I'm the highest try scorer for England, so I've got 49 tries to pick from. So try and pick one of those.
How many did you score for Leicester? Do you know?
130 odd, 120, 130, something like that. Do
you remember the one I put you away and? Oh, sorry, go on.
You probably wanted to load in yourself.
Gina doesn't believe I played rugby with you. That's why I'm having to mention this. She's nodding her head now, but when I did say, actually, I know Rory quite well. Would you like me to get him instead of Tom Cruise?
Well, Gina, to be honest with you, I've played on a rugby pitch with Dell a lot, but as to whether we played rugby together is a sort of a debatable point. The first try you ever score for your country is always a big one. So it's my second game against Paris. I stepped inside of Serge Blanca to score under the post, so that's always memorable.
Yeah.
Scoring a Lions try, scoring my first hat trick. I scored 5 against Fiji. Then you got certain tries that either win games or very crucial in games that sort of made you go towards winning the game. I've only got one official Lions try in a test match, so that was Wellington, New Zealand, 93, when I scored a try in the second test. I scored a try in the Grand Slam in 91 in that game against France to win 21-19. So there's certain tries that are favourite just either because of what you did to score them, or the significance of the try to you, so a first try or Patrick try or whatever.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, the importance of that try in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that, I played, was it 84 till 88 and scored 4 tries. And what's interesting, and this is not a whinge, by the way, by anything, but I played against Japan in November 86, England versus Japan. It wasn't classed as a test match because Japan at the time were a tier 2 nation. So we didn't award caps against non-tier 1 nations. But I scored 2 tries that day, and so they weren't counted towards my record.
Okay.
The following summer in 87, we played in the World Cup in Australia. And we had Australia, USA and Japan in our group. So obviously I had to change the rules that summer because of the World Cup, because of there being tier 2 nations playing. I scored 2 tries against Japan that day, and so those counted. So there's an 8-month gap between 2 tries that weren't counted and 2 tries that were counted.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was in those days. That's the circumstances.
And obviously you had a very long, illustrious career. And Samuel Gazner wants to know, does any one particular year in your rugby career stands out more than any other? And why? I'd like to know why that particular year.
For me, it'd probably be 91, because it was the first Grand Slam year, and then we made the World Cup final in November. The end. Now, it's interesting because that game is a highlight for me because I played in a World Cup final. So there's not many people who can say they played a World Cup final. However, it was also a low light because we lost to Australia that day. So, but it's still, still to get to World Cup final was a fantastic, and to have it to do it in the UK, to do it in England because it was based in England and a home World Cup was fantastic. So 91 always stands out for me.
Yeah,
but it's very difficult because then you just know that you've got 89 and 93. They're Lions years. And going a Lions tour is just is a.
Can you expand on that? What it means, putting that red jersey on when you get picked to play for the Lions? Because a lot of rugby guys.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's the red jersey, but it's the whole concept of the Lions. It's a real honour to play for your country, and you're in the best 15 players in the country at the time. And then every 4 years, you get asked to go on tour with the best of the best. So you get the best players from the 4 countries come together to play, and to make the test match of that squad and play for the best British team at the time is a real accolade, and to play alongside and train alongside and live and room and go on tour with all the players from the 5 nations as was in those days was brilliant.
So next question is from my fitness coach, Aadel Kardooni. I'm not going to ask it because I know you're not doing it. So Aadel, I'm not going to ask you a question. Tough. He wants to know. Well, okay. My team manager is saying, "What is that question? What does your current daily exercise routine look like?"
It depends. Either if I've got a thing on early morning, I'll try and get an hour on the turbo.
Right.
Turbo cycle. If not, I'm trying to get myself in during this lockdown into just doing some sit-ups and light weights for a session for half an hour, 45 minutes. Otherwise, it's the Victoria sponge cakes and a big coffee.
Excellent. Gina, did you hear that? He's another one who likes sponge cakes.
Oh, I love sponge cakes. I just said I cycle, so I'll cycle every weekend. I mean, it's flipping cold, even though the sun's out, but it's very cold. But the weather's supposed to turn nice for the weekend, so I'll be out on the bike on the weekend.
Lovely. So Angela, who's our chairwoman, she's the boss of the club. So I've got to ask her a question, otherwise she's going to lock me out. What was your favourite part of being in the RAF?
Flying. Simple as that.
How long does that process take, by the way, Roy? Once you walk through the gates and you go in as a...
So very quickly, so officer training is 4 months. So you're doing all the soldier stuff, marching and shooting and digging ditches and all sorts of stuff. And then you go basic flying training, so that's about 18 months, 150 hours, 160 hours, flying the jet Provost. Some of these are old ancient aircraft for some of you. Then I went to, that was at Cranwell, then I went to Valley, to fly the Hawk, and that's about 70, 80 hours flying the Hawk's advanced flying training. At the end of that, you get your wings, so you become a pilot, but it's not confirmed, like probationary. You then went down to Chivner to do the attack weapons, so you're now taught to fight. So you drop bombs, fire missile bullets at flags and ground targets, and you start doing air combat and stuff like that. That's about a 40, 50 hour trip. At the end of that trip, and I always say this because it's probably the best you can fly as a pilot. So at the end of that trip, you are a two ship, you're in charge, you get given two targets literally 2.5 hours before the trip's takeoff. You've got to plan the sortie to hit two targets in Wales. One of them is a time and target, and come back. But while you're doing that, you've got another aircraft that's trying to, what we call bounce. So it's a fighter aircraft that's trying to shoot you down. So we literally get airborne. So you do your planning, do your brief, you're in charge. You just have a time and target. So you've got to set off. You've got to fly across to the Pembrokeshire Range just near Llanelli. You literally do a first run attack. So you just drop a practice bomb on a target, just a level attack, 100 feet. Drop it, shoot into Wales. You've got to hit your two targets, the first one of which is a time and target, but you're getting attacked by this bounce, which you've got to evade. And they keep attacking you as you go around. You've got to try and use two targets, you try and not be shot down, and then get back without running out of fuel. And that's about a 55-minute sortie. And all you've got in your aircraft is literally a map, a stopwatch, a compass, and your eyeball, as we call it, a Mark 1 eyeball. So, you know, you're a fairly mean machine when you get to that stage. And at the end of that, you get rolled. And I had Tornado F1, F3, Tornado GR1, Phantom, Jaguar, Harrier, Buccaneer. So I was sent the Tornado, and I went to the OCU, and you go through the OCU, Triple T, as it's called, and then eventually you get to squadron. And then when you get to a squadron and you become combat ready, that's when you have your wings confirmed. That's the normal route. And it normally takes between 3 and 4 years to do that.
Joe, by the way. Yeah. So it's just like Top Gun then.
Yeah, well, it is Top Gun. Yeah.
So Angie's asked. Well, I know Angie's asked another question, but I'm sure this is from her son Joe. A kind of a similar question that Teddy has asked. So, any tips in becoming a better winger? And I'm going to roll Teddy's question into this as well. He says he finds it difficult being a winger to really get involved during the game because of his position. Would you give him any tips?
Well, it's going to be much harder at that level as the game's a bit more unstructured, as you're still learning the whole idea of the space and game and how to make the most out of all teams. There's no other way. As a winger, you just got yourself stuck in there. So whenever go and shout at the scrum half and tell them to give you the ball. And trying to improve as a winger, there's a whole lot of skill set. You've got so many different skill sets. It's all about running with the ball and beating players. And there is skill sets about how you beat players. Defense, how do you tackle? Sometimes your last line of defense. How do you get your positioning right, your feet right to make sure you get the tackle right? Make sure you don't stick your head in the way. And looking at everybody, okay? The technique of tackling somebody, make sure you put it in the right place so you don't get yourself knocked out. Kicking, passing, and then just spatial awareness. So half the time is, unless you've got spatial awareness of trying to judge where the ball's going, you don't get involved in the game. So if you can try and work out where it's going to be, and you try and get there and sneak in for a few tries, a la Chris Ashton. He's an outstanding poacher, but he was in the right place because he was great at running lines.
Mm.
And
listen to your coach.
Does help.
Yeah. So, did you? This is a question from Hugo Dring. Hugo wants to know if you preferred playing left or right, and if you did have a preference, why?
I tend to prefer playing left. A lot of it is just because of it's the side I played 95% of my career. So I started out in left wing, and the old days, the main reason why people wanted you on the left wing was the quickest or best winger would go on the left wing, because generally people tend to be right-handed. So you tend to find that the pass from right to left is much easier for most people than it is going from left to right. So you tend to find the ball get there quicker. So you want to get your ball to the best or quickest winger as quick as possible. So that's why I started out on the left wing in my early days. and the more and more you play, the more you get used to the angles and such like. You know, I had a preference, but I could play right. So it was, you know, I had to play right for Chris Otey and Mark Bailey in my career for England, and once for Tony in an England 15 game against the Barbars.
Okay. Manny, who's one of our younger players, he doesn't actually play for our age group. He's one of the younger kids.
Oh, I love your cat.
That's Gina's cat, not my cat.
Elena, is it Elena? Oh, I love the cat. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
we got five in our house in lockdown at the moment. So.
Eleanor's cat.
Oh, Eleanor. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, you just
right. So Manny wants to know. He's a centre at the moment. He says
Pass
he
the ball
uses
to
his
winger.
strength. Yeah. Well, hold on. He says he uses his strength and evasiveness a lot, and he finds himself running on the wing quite a bit. Should I play winger instead?
Well, why are you finding yourself on the wing?
During
a game, or because the
during a game? I assume he's talking about during the game. He finds himself.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the game, because of professionalism and because the skill set more people are doing in the professional game, there's a lot more players being able to not be just specifically a winger. I was mainly a winger. I was potentially a centre replacement if anybody like Will or Jerry got injured or something as a possibility, and I could fill in at full back. But really, you know, I had to work hard at it. Whereas nowadays you find a lot of players that are a lot more, you know, switching between positions and such like, so that there's a much more skill set. So, you know, from my perspective, if you get a chance to play in a different position, it's always going to be good because it gives you a better awareness of what it's like to play in that position. So if you're a centre and you go and play in the wing, you'll soon realise the hassle you have if the centre doesn't do this, that and the other as you're on the wing, because you're the last person to get the ball. And the same as a fullback, you start to understand the problems the wingers have or the centres have, and Vicky Verkey. So to be honest with you, I think it's always a good chance. Every now and then you should just say, look, let's just swap positions and see what it's like. So you empathise with the different positions, understand the challenges each of them have, and that will improve the whole team's awareness of how we can play better as a team.
I want to talk a bit more about your working life. And there's one question here, and it's from my son. He says, I don't think he's going to get any dinner tonight. Was my dad actually that good, or did he just have a good set of backs that made him good? Can you tell everybody that I was the best Iranian scrum half ever you played with?
You were the best Iranian scrum half in Leicester I ever played with.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask. I've got the questions up. I'm just going to read them down.
Are you?
First, you ever flew in a hawk. I've been up at 40,000 feet. You're pointing the nose down in a hawk. Put full power on. I've been supersonic, just in a hawk. What did I just think? I don't think they're going to get any dinner. Why is Nick getting any dinner tonight?
Because he's my son. He's the one who asked the question. Actually, if you scroll up, Rory, there's a question from Sim. That's what I want to go on to, where he says, "What skills?"
Transfer your skills. I think it's rather heavy to finish off with. Look, the whole context of playing rugby is about playing part of a team. I, as a winger, couldn't be as successful as I was, and score as many as I try as I could, unless I had, you know, the people inside me played as a team. I knew I was part of the whole team network. So the better you can work out to play as a team, the more successful you're going to be as you know, in the sport you're going to play. Those rules still apply in the place of business. And in fact, you know, that's what I spend half my time doing in the business I do now as a consultant, going to business and tell them, why don't you work better as a team with each other? And so that whole thing applies. If you end up having 15 individuals, if you had 15 Danny Ciprianis, you'd have a fantastic game of rugby to watch, but I guarantee you won't win every game. And so how do you get the best 15 players that want to work together and achieve together and produce the performance? That's where you get enjoyment.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very much, it's the old, the Three Musketeers, isn't it? All for one and one for all. Very much a team sport.
Yeah. We have quite a few parents are listening to you. So can you tell them a bit more about your business consultancy, Wingman? So a bit of self-promotion here, Rory.
Selling it to a whole bunch of rugby. Yeah. So came out of the Air Force team is obviously a big passion of mine. Trying to get businesses to understand how you get people working together more effectively. I've said it already around the context of rugby, and the Air Force is exactly the same. And so going to businesses and talking to all the people in the business, how they work together and how they can do it much more effectively. Fundamentally, that's it. People spend a lot of the time just concentrating on the business and just doing the number crunching, but don't think about the people as well. You as rugby coaches and parents will know that if you get the players, get their skill set and how they do the actual technical bit right, but they also get the team bit right and they bond together as a team, whichever year that's in, you know they're going to be much more of a successful team. And it's no different to the workplace.
Yeah.
So a combination of running management and leadership development programs and doing consultancy within a business to try and make it more efficient. That's basically it.
Yeah. I'm a bit conscious, obviously, we've taken a lot of your time, but we've got a lot of aspiring kids, players, who are looking to go into that professional route of becoming a professional rugby player.
Yeah.
Is there any advice? I know you're on the board at Leicester Tigers. You watch a lot of rugby. What advice would you give them if they want to give it a go and attempt to become professional rugby players?
Well, there's two things. One is the one I gave earlier before: practice. You won't make it in the game of rugby unless you've got a skill set to do it. There's an attitude which you'll do, and of course you're playing rugby. It's part of it. The old drive and ambition to play. And I'm sure I'll get lots of nods from parents. But at the end of the day, whether you are successful or not, you either don't make it through the academy at 18 or 19. What are you going to do? Or if you do play professional rugby, when you get to the age of 30, 35, when you retire, what are you going to do then? Because this isn't football. You ain't going to retire with £1 million of money. So you may, if you become the Owen Farrells and the Maro Tudgies of the world, you can earn some really good money, but you won't be able to retire. So think about what you're going to do as well. And it's never too early to think that either. It's a sad state of affairs where you get some players who wait till they get to be retired and then think, oh, what am I going to do now? And it's quite sad, really.
Well, we have a saying with my group: I'd rather coach an intelligent rugby player than a dumb one. So we put a lot of...
How did you become so successful then? Bloody hell.
I just fooled everybody into a false sense of security.
Right, I've got some pictures. I flew with the 100 Squadron, and their centenary was in 2017.
Okay.
And they invited me to go back and fly with them, and they took my brother back as well.
Yeah. So
I got some photographs. I got some videos of the plane landing and taking off from the cockpit.
Okay.
So hopefully if I can share the screen, it comes up. Just to finish off, just give some...
Yes.
Everybody watches rugby and that sort of stuff, but hopefully this...
Yep.
So obviously you can tell which one is the handsome dude here, please, ladies.
Okay.
So does it come up?
Not yet.
Share.
There we go.
Okay, so obviously the fat guy here is me, and that's my bro. That's Tony. He's 6 years younger than me. So do you think we look like twins?
No, I'm going to unmute everybody. Hold on.
Yeah,
Right, you all
going to do the auditing.
So just to give you some sort of idea, so
We have Matthew with honey.
Hold on. I've got to mute everybody because there's too much noise.
there's too much noise going on.
Yeah.
So that is the normal kit ground, tandem seat, one in front of the other. So I've got G pants. You can see the G pants on my legs. It's like chaps that the Americans, cowboys wear. You can see the white tube coming out, so that's pumping in air into from the aircraft. The white patch you see on our knees is where we can write notes. So we have a chinograph that we can write notes on, and you can see the pockets where we put the maps and books and things. You've got the May West, you jump into the sea, and you can see the bone dome or the helmet we're wearing. So let's see which way it's going to. I just want to show you. So I'm sat in the back cockpit and you can see I'm sat on an ejection seat. So it's an explosive device that can bang you out. And basically it's a 0-0 seat. So if it's doing no miles an hour and you're at 0 height, it'll eject through the canopy and you will survive. That's the plan anyway. So that's the cockpit inside the Hawk. And that cockpit I flew 3 years ago is the same as it was when I flew it in 1985. Hasn't changed very much. These aircraft are now 35 years old that the Red Arrows fly. Just very quickly want to give you an idea what it's like. I'll show you one video of me taking off, and then I'll stop and let you all go and have your tea, because I got on my tea. So I'm going to load up now.
There we go.
The aircraft from
There we
North
go.
there from the captain. So this is a pairs takeoff. We normally get airborne about 120 miles an hour, something like that. The weather's not brilliant. You can see the rain coming off the canopy. So you see the nose wheel come off. That's about 90 miles an hour, and then slowly the wheels come off.
Cameron's got some speed on him, isn't he? So is that the other plane that?
Tony was flying.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Seems you're very close.
Yeah, it's a bit far apart actually. We're about 8 feet apart normally when you're flying.
Mm-hmm.
Take it later on.
Okay.
If I quickly share this again, just show you. I've just stopped. I haven't showed the where's the share screen? So you can just start seeing the other aircraft is just starting to grey out a little bit. So we're in cloud, and the last thing you want to do is get separated when you're in cloud. So you try and stay as close as possible. So normally in climb we're doing about 350 knots. So that's when your wingtip 8 feet apart, something like that. That's just normal. That's normal operations. So hopefully that should give you a bit of an insight to what it's being a pilot, and hopefully give Alex a bit of a buzz for
Yeah. So I'm going to unmute everybody, Rory. So just for everybody to say thank you very much for your time. I hope everybody's found this really useful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks, Rory.
Thanks, Rory.
Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I wish everybody all the best for the rugby career.
Thank you.
And enjoy. Stay safe in the lockdown.
Indeed.
Thanks, Rory.
All right, Ross. Thanks very much again. Send my love to the family. Speak to you soon.
So you owe me a Victoria sponge cake, mate.
What Gina does. Me and you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Excellent.
Thank you ever so much.
Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
I'll catch you up soon.
Bye.
Okay, Ross. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Well done, everybody.
Great, Aadel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Okay, well done.
Very, very good.
I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Alex.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
So in Farrell. Right, Del, have you gone? Del, you gone? Right, I'm going.